Have you ever actually sat down and pondered the evolution of RPGs and other adventure games? Well, the team over at Shiro Games has, and their new project, Evoland, is all about taking the player from the very beginning of adventure gaming all the way through the evolutionary timeline of the genre. Drawing heavy inspiration from games such as The Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy, you'll explore a typical RPG landscape full of forests and deserts, fighting through dungeons, solving puzzles, and chatting with the local NPCs in town, but with one major twist. None of these things will actually exist until you find the proper chest containing the next evolution of the game. Evoland is available through the Shiro Games website, as well as through Steam and Good Old Games for only $9.99. But is this game a true evolution of the genre? Let's take a look. Being a fan of classic RPGs, it was very easy to get sucked into playing Evoland. Basically, the game is set up like an old 8-bit RPG that you would have seen on like the NES, but with a bit of a twist. As you go along playing the game, you find chests, but the chests don't give you new items and equipment. Instead, you actually find game upgrades in these chests. Now you can see as I've been playing, I've already picked up a couple of these upgrades. The first one gave me music, which I didn't initially have at the start of the game, and then another one gave me save points, so I can now actually save my game and track my progress. It's actually really cool to see these upgrades once they're all in place, because you really do recognize a lot of the advancements that were made in technology over the years while playing these sort of games. Now the upgrades aren't only cosmetic, and they don't only add sound effects either. There's actually a lot that really changed the gameplay, because as you start getting more into the 3D environments, the gameplay has to change according to the new environment. So while it initially starts out being a lot like Zelda, there's going to be moments in the game that you actually are going to be in turn-based battles that are very similar to Final Fantasy. And I think it's really those two games that Evoland focuses on the most, probably because they're so recognized as leading the way for the modern RPG. You can see that as we've been playing, the graphics have changed drastically, and the graphics are actually one of Evoland's greatest strengths. The developers really knew what they were doing when they were designing the 8-bit sprites and the 16-bit sprites, and then later on the 3D models. Many of them really look like they could have come out of some of these old classic games. And it's really impressive to see an upgrade kick in and all of a sudden your world is flat in 2D, and then the next moment you're running around in a 3D environment. And there's an especially cool moment later on where you start to get some pre-rendered backgrounds, and they look like something straight out of the old PlayStation 1 RPGs. Now the best part about Evoland is that the game is basically one big Easter egg, and you're going to find a lot of references to all of your favorite classic RPGs. Things such as character names are going to be very reminiscent of Final Fantasy characters. There's items that you have to go searching for in certain dungeons that are taken straight out of other games. And you'll really appreciate Evoland more if you're familiar with the references that are being presented to you. Now the biggest problem with the game is that the second half of the adventure isn't quite as interesting or as exciting as the first half. While the gameplay is still really good and the best Easter eggs actually come towards the end of the adventure, the highlight of the experience is watching the world change around you every time you pick up an upgrade, and unfortunately at the end, the upgrades are so few and far between that the game starts to feel a bit slow-paced. Luckily though, the game isn't really that long, and it will probably only take you a couple of hours to find all of the hidden upgrades. In many ways, Evoland is an exceptional game. The premise is unique, and the gameplay, while overly familiar, is just as fun as the classic video games that it is paying homage to. Casual gamers who are unfamiliar with the likes of old-school RPGs will most likely find Evoland to be a boring romp through simplicity, but it's clear that the developers were making this for the longtime gamers who have lived to watch these evolutionary steps unfold. Everything from the diverse graphics to the many clever video game references is well done, even though the last half of the adventure is a bit slow-paced. Nostalgia is here in full force, and Evoland is well worth any RPG fan's time. For more indie gaming news and reviews, check out our channel at Pixabyte.tv, and I'll see you guys next time.